Countless talents are hidden in the depths of the world. They might be poets, musicians, philosophers, with unprecedented gifts that could leave an indelible mark. But they rarely have the opportunity to present themselves in the spotlight. For over 2,000 years, the culture of theatre has never ceased. Because, for a couple of hours, the theatre allows us to immerse ourselves in the stories of other people, to throw away external circumstances, to extend our emotions beyond ourselves, and feel the immense possibilities of mankind. The Paris Opera has existed for more than 300 years. Its original form, Académie Royale de Musique, was established in 1669 by Louis XIV and the poet Pierre Perrin. Then it changed its venue 11 times, almost always due to fire or attempted assassinations. On January 14, 1858, as Napoleon III and Empress Eugénie arrived at Le Pelletier Opera, anarchists attacked their carriage with bombs. While the assassination failed, the opera house was seriously damaged. This led to the construction of the Paris Opera House that we see today. For the first time in French history, Napoleon III decided that the new opera house would be designed by the winner of an international architectural competition. Within a month, over 170 ambitious architects entered the competition with designs for the opera house. The applicants included two leading architects of the day, who were also bitter rivals. Eugène Viollet-le-Duc, who oversaw the restoration of the Notre Dame Cathedral, and Charles Rohault de Fleury, the architect responsible for the maintenance of the Le Pelletier Opera. However, on May the 30th, 1861, the winner announced was the unknown Charles Garnier.
Contre toute attente, ce concours a été attribué à Charles Garnier, qui était alors un jeune prix de Rome, qui avait à peine 35 ans à l'époque, et qui ne s'attendait pas à gagner, avait juste envie de participer, a été lui-même, il le dit, très étonné d'avoir gagné. Il a énormément utilisé le fer, mais d'une manière où on ne le montrait pas encore. C'est-à-dire qu'il l'a caché quasiment partout. Notamment la salle est faite entièrement en fût de fer creux, dans lequel il passait toute sa ventilation, parce qu'il y avait un système de ventilation, de chauffage extraordinaire. Mais tout ça, l'habillé de stuc, de marbre et de choses comme ça.
The Paris Opera's iron structure made it more lasting than its predecessors. Yet before the opera house was half built, a flurry of criticisms had blackened its reputation. Too much gold was the main complaint. One critic even mocked, "Without making her beautiful, you've made her rich." The sculpture groups above the facade are Aimé Millet's Apollo and Charles Gounod's Harmony and Poetry. People mistook the sculptures as extravagant figures covered in gold. However, 3 years later, Garnier explained in his writings, the method of gilding he employed was dorure à l'effet. Only a quarter of the surface was covered with actual gold. The rest was merely painted with a golden color. The facade is a carefully orchestrated celebration of music. 17 materials, mottled marble, half-gilt friezes. On the central first floor, we can find the then contemporary composers of the 19th century, musicians of the 18th century are enshrined between the arches of the ground floor. Mosaic was rarely seen in France at that time, but it made expressive decorations of dramatic masks.
C'est un des éléments particuliers de l'Opéra Garnier, c'est cette mosaïque. C'était donc un grand prix de Rome qui avait beaucoup voyagé en Italie, qui avait étudié la mosaïque de Pompéi, qui avait été ébloui et qui avait dit « mais je veux ça à l'opéra ». Et notamment, il n'avait pas la technique qu'il a finalement rapportée d'Italie, qui est une technique très particulière, où vous déposez à l'envers votre mosaïque sur des cartons d'environ 1 mètre carré, qui vous permet d'aller à toute allure, par terre et non pas en hauteur.
The sculptures on the ground floor are different music forms personified. Instrumental music, the song, the cantata, and the infamous the dance. This particular group by Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux consists of 9 figures, the most in the whole building. They frolic openly without any restraint, their limbs and bodies stretched wide and uncovered.
Alors voilà, vous êtes devant le groupe de la danse de Carpeaux. Le groupe de la danse de Carpeaux, c'est magnifique. C'est une bacchanale, c'est Paris, c'est la joie, c'est la danse, c'est que du bonheur. Sauf que lors de l'inauguration, ça déclenche quand même toute la presse parisienne s'insurge contre ce groupe de la danse qui est dévoilé, où les femmes sont nues. Cette nudité choque vraiment le 19e siècle. Et donc Charles Garnier est vraiment pris à partie par la presse. La statue est aspergée de peinture rouge, tout devient négatif. Mais Charles Garnier tient bon, encore une fois, contre vents et marées. Et finalement, son groupe de la danse devient quasiment emblématique, quasiment la statue emblématique de la façade.
It was not an immediate win for the fortunate artist, but public acclaim for worthy artists nearly always comes later. Distinguished Parisians of the day would enter the opera house through the Pavillon des Abonnés, the season ticket holders' rotunda. The arabesque sundial on the ceiling was sculptured by Félix Chabot. And within it are coded references of Garnier's signature and the time taken to complete the building. Jean-Louis Charles Garnier, architect, 1861 to 1875. At that time, it was considered highly vain and impertinent for an architect to sign his name on a public building. But Garnier started a new convention. He later wrote, "I made the opera, and for better or worse, I will sign it." It's not self-love, it's loyalty. We then meet Marcello's Pythia, Apollo's priestess. She sits on a rock and seems to have entered a state of frenzy after breathing the prophetic vapors, as described in the myth. She is not the priestess of ancient Greece, but the prophet whom Alexander the Great consulted with during his conquest of India. She resembles a gypsy with live snakes instead of hair, and a loose garment about her otherwise naked body. If the encrypted arabesque and the frantic witch together compose a rich and dark overture, then the grand staircase is a pause that bewilders and amazes with its breathtaking grandeur. This wondrous creation employs green marble from Sweden, red marble from the south of France, and white marble from Tuscany. For decades, the gowns of elegant ladies swept past the bright banisters and balustrades and made them even brighter. Garnier's railings boast vibrant colors and a creamy luster. "30 meters above us are the ceiling paintings that Garnier called Olympus, the abode of the gods in Greek mythology. The painter Isidore Pils was ill and had help from 2 of his pupils, one of whom was the talented Georges Clairin. The 3 finished these paintings together. In the city of Paris receiving the plan of the new opera, a personified Paris leans on a ship, with the river Seine reclining beside her. Architecture, painting, and sculpture encourage a young artist to present the plan for the new opera house. It was not until the eve of the inauguration that these masterpieces were completed. On January the 5th, 1875, in the presence of distinguished guests, including the President of the French Third Republic, the King of Spain, and the Lord Mayor of London, the new Paris Opera House was officially opened. And it was down the grand staircase, the loftiest and most dramatic stage of the entire building, that Garnier walked, and was honored with ceaseless applause from all sides. It was as if we were suddenly transported from the drudgery of everyday life into a world of opulence, to the kingdom of the divine.
Alors voici les pieds de la danseuse. C'est des pieds qui portent bonheur. Ici, tout le monde touche les pieds de la danseuse pour avoir la chance de la journée. Donc imaginez-vous montant le grand escalier dans une robe sublime. Les femmes sont très belles, les femmes sont mises en scène, les femmes sont sublimées dans ce grand escalier. Mais c'est aussi la mise en scène de l'opéra, c'est aussi la mise en scène de la vie.
These female torchbearers were sculpted by Albert Ernest Carrier-Bernous. Most of the artists that Garnier employed, like Carrier-Bernous and Garnier himself, were former students of École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts and winners of the famous Prix de Rome. Garnier balanced their style, gave them definitive instructions, and drew more than 3,000 plans, which, when put together, would stretch for 7,000 meters. The present Palais Garnier is the glorious achievement of such effort. Then how should we define Garnier's style? His wife wrote after his death that Garnier once told the Empress Eugénie his style was Napoleon III's. Many thought the story was true. However, none of Garnier's writings ever mentioned the so-called Napoleon III style. Rather, he once wrote that whenever he was asked about the style, he would answer with pride, "The style I used was my own." The mosaic on the ceiling of the antifoyer, the avant-garde geometric patterns, the dramatic masks, and the allegorical paintings about the history of music. This is not classicism, not Baroque, but style custom-made for the new opera house. On the two ends of the antifoyer are two inscriptions prescribed by Garnier. These decorative mosaics were applied for the first time in France for the ornamentation of this vault and the popularization of the art. The figures painted by Curzon were executed by Salviati and the ornaments by Fekina. The architect is Charles Garnier. Like a prelude, after the antifoyer comes the grand foyer, where the veins of the universe seem to be pulsating with gold. 33 ceiling paintings and more than 30 surrounding paintings covered over 500 square meters and took the painter, Paul Baudry, 9 years. The low-slung chandeliers, the torch-bearers, symbolizing an evolving source of light. The floral decoration of a decade's work, all wait in silence for a break between acts, for visitors' hushed signs of admiration. The theatrical elements are subtle extensions of dramas beyond the stage.
Vous êtes dans le grand foyer de l'opéra. Le grand foyer de l'opéra, c'est un endroit sublime qui reprend toute la magnificence du XIXe siècle, qui était exclusivement réservé aux hommes. Sauf qu'au XIXe siècle, lors de l'inauguration, l'infante d'Espagne se lève et dit « Moi, je veux voir le grand foyer ». Et donc, depuis ce jour, le grand foyer est autorisé aux femmes. Et donc, bien évidemment, les femmes mettent leurs plus beaux atours pour venir dans ce grand foyer.
The bust of Garnier by Carpeaux was a gift from Garnier's widow to the Paris Opera 6 years after the architect's death. On the night of the inauguration, Garnier paid for his ticket like an ordinary man and enjoyed the first performance that brought the opera house to life. In the first chapter of Garnier's The New Opera, he lists all the unreasonable criticisms of the designs, proving them wrong and defending his opera house. If I have the opportunity to build another great theatre, you will see that I will be a repeat offender. The Paris Opera took 14 years to build and used more than 30 materials. More than 100 sculptures were commissioned, not to mention painters, engineers, masons, interior designers. Like Garnier, they were working for a less than profitable wage. It was for the fame of the arts that they labored till the moment of unveiling. For them, the entire building was a stage. It was the opportunity that they longed for to place their tribute at the feet of art. Garnier wrote in the last chapter, "I am of the opinion that more than bread, artists live on glory."